It began like every December 24th of the last 40 years, with hope disguised as tradition. I woke before dawn, my hands already reaching for the red apron hanging behind the kitchen door. The same apron I wore when Anna took her first steps toward the Christmas tree. The same one stained with Lucas's baby food from his first Christmas. The same one that held Matthias when he was too small to walk, but too curious to sleep, through Santa's arrival. I moved through the house like a ghost of Christmas past, touching every surface with reverence. The dining room table received my grandmother's lace tablecloth, the one I'd ironed with trembling fingers every Christmas morning since I became a mother. I tied red ribbons around napkins I embroidered when Lucas was still in diapers, when my dreams were small, and my world was full. Each ribbon was a prayer. Each fold was hope. The silverware came next. My mother's wedding set tarnished but treasured. Anna always said it made our humble table look like magic. I polished each piece until I could see my reflection. Older, now softer around the edges, but still the same woman who once believed that love given freely would always return. In the kitchen, I simmered Matthias's favorite honey-glazed carrots until the sweetness filled every corner of the house. The aroma wrapped around me like an embrace from years past, when little hands tugged at my skirt and voices called Mama from every room. I wasn't just setting a table, I was setting a stage for love to return home. The morning stretched into afternoon, and I found myself changing clothes. 3 times. The blue dress made me look tired. The black one felt like mourning something that wasn't yet dead. I settled on soft wool. Deep burgundy, the color Anna once said, made me look warm like Christmas itself. I sprayed the perfume she gave me 10 years ago, back when gift-giving felt like love instead of obligation. Just a touch. Enough to say I'm still here. I'm still your mother. But as 5 o'clock approached, something shifted in the air. The silence in the house began to thicken. Not the comfortable quiet of preparation, but something heavier. Something that pressed into my ears, into my ribs, into the spaces between my heartbeats. My fingers fumbled with my teacup as I checked my phone for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. Then it came. The message that would crack my world open. Anna's text arrived first. Doing Christmas at Camilla's this year. Her family's so excited to meet us all. Merry Xmas, Mum. Lucas followed within minutes. Change of plans. We're all going to Camilla's. Should be fun, love you. And finally, Matthias. Hope you understand about Christmas. Camilla's family's really sweet. We'll call you tomorrow. Camilla. The name that had slowly, quietly inserted itself between my children and me. The woman who entered their lives like a gentle spring breeze, but somehow managed to uproot me like a winter storm. She hadn't held their feverish bodies against her chest during endless nights of childhood illness. She hadn't given up her dreams, her sleep, her very identity to shape theirs. She hadn't dried their tears when first loves broke their tender hearts or celebrated their victories as if they were her own breathing. And yet she had become the center of their Christmas, while I had become the margin, the footnote, the afterthought. Within an hour, the photos began appearing on social media. I saw them all posted within minutes of each other like a coordinated symphony of my absence. The same elegant table, the same crystal wine glasses catching candlelight, the same warm smiles I once thought belonged only to our kitchen, our traditions, our love. Anna looked radiant, laughing at something someone off-camera had said. Lucas had his arm around his wife, both of them glowing with contentment. Matthias was helping serve dinner, his face bright with the joy I used to inspire. They were all there, all together, all happy, all somewhere else. I stood in my dining room surrounded by a feast growing cold. Every plate perfectly positioned and tragically empty. Every fork and knife arranged with the precision of someone who still believed in miracles. The roasted potatoes had formed a skin. The sweet rice pudding was beginning to congeal, and the candle at the center of the table flickered like it, too, was ready to surrender. The silence pressed deeper now, filling the spaces where laughter should have echoed, where stories should have been shared, where my grandchildren should have been learning the songs I taught their parents, tasting the recipes passed down through generations of women who knew that love lived in the details. That's when I did something I had never done before, something that felt both desperate and sacred. I walked to the living room and carefully took down their photographs from the wall. Not out of anger. I was too hollowed out for anger, but out of a need I couldn't name. Anna at age 5 clutching a snow globe and believing in magic. Lucas with a missing front tooth and eyes full of mischief, still young enough to think his mother could fix anything. Matthias wearing the reindeer ears he refused to remove that entire December, dancing through the house like joy personified. I carried these frozen moments back to the dining room and placed them gently beside each empty plate. My babies, my heart walking around outside my body, my reason for everything. And then with hands that trembled not from age but from the weight of love unexpressed, I lit a single white candle. I closed my eyes. The tears didn't come yet. They were still trapped somewhere deeper than sorrow, in a place where mothers keep their breaking hearts hidden, even from themselves. Instead, I whispered prayers over those photographs. Not prayers of anger or manipulation, not pleas for guilt or return, but prayers for peace, theirs and mine. I prayed that God would wrap them in the love I could no longer give without being shattered in the process. I asked him to help me learn the hardest lesson of motherhood, how to let go, not of loving them, but of expecting that love to be returned in the ways my heart had always imagined. I whispered forgiveness I wasn't sure I felt yet. I asked for strength I wasn't certain I possessed. I prayed for the wisdom to distinguish between loving and needing, between giving and expecting, between being a mother and being invisible. The candle flame danced, and with it danced my memories. Anna singing Christmas carols with a tinsel crown sliding down her forehead. Lucas pretending to be Santa stuffing pillows under his pajama shirt. Matthias crawling under the tree for just one peek at presents, his excitement infectious enough to make us all believe in magic again. These were the moments that had sustained me through every disappointment, every forgotten birthday, every missed Mother's Day. These were the deposits in my heart's bank that I'd been withdrawing from for years, never realizing the account was running dangerously low. I hadn't let go when they started spending holidays with their partners' families, just this once. I hadn't released them when phone calls became texts, and text became silence. I hadn't accepted the gradual eclipse of my importance in their lives, always believing that my patient waiting would eventually be rewarded with their return. But that night, that Christmas Eve, when I prayed over photographs, while they created new memories without me, something inside me finally cracked. It wasn't a loud breaking like glass hitting stone. It was soft and almost relieving, like a breath I'd been holding for decades, finally finding its way free. The flame wavered, casting shadows that looked like all the versions of myself I'd forgotten, in my devotion to being their mother. The young woman with dreams, the wife who existed beyond her children, the individual soul who had somehow disappeared into the role of caretaker cheerleader and safe harbor for everyone else's storms. Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever sat in a room full of love you prepared, but no one came to receive? Tell me in the comments, because tonight you're not alone in this particular kind of breaking. The next morning arrived gray and quiet, matching the emptiness in my chest. But instead of lying in bed nursing my wounds, I did something that surprised even me. I got up, put on my coffee, and began to dismantle Christmas. I didn't fold the decorations with my usual care. I didn't wrap the ornaments in tissue paper while whispering the stories of when we bought them. Instead, I packed them away like I was wrapping up a part of myself I could no longer afford to carry. The stockings with their embroidered names, the angel figurine Anna made in 3rd grade, slightly lopsided but perfect in its imperfection. The tablecloth with their tiny handprints pressed into fabric paint artifacts from a time when their hands were small enough to hold completely in mine. I labeled the box with words that felt both bitter and liberating. Christmas, maybe next time if I feel like it. Then I did something even more significant. I looked at my phone at the family group chat where I existed like a ghost. Present but rarely acknowledged unless someone needed a recipe, a loan, or a reminder about a birthday they'd forgotten. My fingers hovered over the screen for a long moment before I did what months of hurt had been building toward. I left the group, quietly. No dramatic message, no explanation, no plea for attention or guilt-inducing farewell. I simply exited. The relief was immediate and terrifying, like stepping off a cliff and discovering you could fly. I looked around the house then. Really looked. The house they still called home when it was convenient. The house they assumed they would. Inherit the one they wanted me to maintain like a museum of their childhood, while they built their real lives elsewhere. The house I had scrubbed and repaired and kept perfect, always ready for their return. And suddenly, I didn't want to be ready anymore. I called a realtor the next week, Margaret Delacroix, a woman my age who understood without explanation why I needed to move quickly. The nest is empty, I told her. Time to see if I remember how to fly. Within a month, I had sold the house where I'd raised 3 humans and lost myself completely. I moved into a small apartment by the sea where the only sounds are waves against the shore and the turning of pages from books I finally had time to read for myself. I didn't tell them I was moving. I didn't ask for their blessing or their help or their understanding. I just lived. For the first time in 40 years, I made a decision based entirely on what I wanted, not on what would make me available for everyone else's needs. At the local library, they call me Miss Rosa. There, I'm not the forgotten mother or the discarded matriarch. I'm not the woman whose children outgrew her love. I'm simply the lady who helps children find the perfect story, who brews the best afternoon, tea who listens without judgment, when teenagers whisper about first heartbreaks. I met Clara there, a woman with bright lipstick and an even brighter soul, who became my first friend in decades. My son blocked my number because I asked him to visit without his girlfriend just once. She told me over tea and shortbread cookies. I kept sending him love anyway. But I finally stopped waiting for him to send it back. We understood each other without needing to explain the specific wounds. Some pain speaks a universal language among mothers who gave everything and found themselves holding nothing. I didn't seek revenge against my children. Revenge would have required more energy than I had left for anger. Instead, I sought peace. I stopped trying to earn love that should have come freely. I stopped making room at my table for people who only showed up when they needed something from me. I started writing letters to myself, to the girl I once was before I became defined entirely by my relationship to others, to the woman I was rediscovering in the mirror. Softer now, yes, but also fiercer. I found her again, that spirited young woman with curly hair and hope in her eyes, the one who had dreams before she learned to dream only for her children. I began taking art classes, watercolors. I was terrible at first, but terrible in a way that felt like freedom. I painted sunsets badly and wildflowers that looked more like colorful accidents than nature. But they were mine, created by hands that had spent decades serving others, now learning to create something purely for the joy of creation. I joined a book club where women discussed novels with the passion we once reserved for our children's achievements. I traveled, small trips at first, then longer ones. I saw the ocean from different shores, tasted wine in small towns, slept in beds I didn't have to make for anyone else, and slowly, carefully, I began to heal. Then on a Tuesday morning in March, my phone rang. Anna's name on the screen sent a familiar jolt through my chest. Part hope, part dread, part muscle memory of maternal anxiety. Mom. Her voice was different, smaller. I had this dream that you were gone. Just vanished. I woke up crying. I stood by my window watching seagulls dance over the waves. I'm still here, I said simply. Nothing more, no reassurance, no immediate forgiveness, just truth. She was quiet for a long moment. Can I come see you? She arrived 3 days later, alone, no husband shadowing her choices, no children to distract from difficult conversations. No agenda beyond the discomfort of a daughter who had suddenly realized her mother might be more than a permanent fixture in her landscape. We walked along the shore, our feet finding rhythm in the sand. She kept glancing at me sideways as if I were a puzzle she was trying to solve. You look different, she finally said. I am different. Are you angry with us? I considered the question while waves filled the silence between us. Anger requires energy I decided to spend elsewhere. We didn't mean to hurt you. I know. That almost makes it harder. We walked further, her discomfort growing with each step. She had come expecting the mother she remembered, the one who would reassure her, explain away her guilt, make everything comfortable again, with love that asked for nothing in return. Instead, she found a woman who had learned the difference between loving her children and losing herself to them. I miss you, she whispered finally. I've been here the whole time. You just stopped looking. That afternoon, as she prepared to leave, she asked the question I had been waiting for, without realizing it. What do you need from us, Mom? And for the first time in decades, I had an answer that wasn't designed to make her feel better. I need you to love me when it's inconvenient. I need you to choose me sometimes, not because you need something, but because you want me in your life. I need you to remember that I exist even when I'm not useful. She cried then, real tears, not the polite dampness of social sympathy. And in her crying, I felt something shift. Not back to the way things were, but forward to the way things might become. Lucas called a week later. Then Matthias. Conversations that were awkward and necessary, like stretching muscles that had been clenched too long. They didn't apologize exactly. That would come later in smaller moments through actions rather than words. But they began to see me. I no longer chased their attention like a woman starving for scraps. I no longer beg for inclusion in lives they're too busy living to share. I no longer host Christmas with plates that remain untouched, whispering prayers over photographs while they create memories elsewhere. But I do still light candles. For myself now. For the woman I was before I became invisible. For the peace I found in my own company, after decades of believing I only existed in relation to others. I pray still, not for their return to the way things were, but for continued healing, theirs and mine. For the wisdom to love without drowning. For the strength to remain open without remaining available for hurt. This Christmas, Anna asked if she could come to my apartment by the sea. Just her and the kids, she said. We want to learn your recipe for honey-glazed carrots. I said yes, but I also made other plans. Plans that don't depend on their presence or absence. Plans that honor the woman who survived 4 decades of beautiful martyrdom and chose finally to live. If you've ever stood in a kitchen on Christmas, night whispering prayers over photographs while your children smiled somewhere else, type Amen in the comments. If you've ever felt erased by the people you created, tell me your story, or whisper it to yourself. Either way, you are not alone. We may have been left behind, but we are not lost. We still have breath, we still have worth, and we still have the quiet revolutionary power to choose ourselves. Let this story be your mirror. Let your pain be witnessed and honored. Let your silence become your strength, and your healing become your hope. You are not invisible. You never were. You were just looking for your reflection in the wrong places. If this story touched something in your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that reminds you of your worth. Share this with someone you consider dear. Someone who might need to remember that it's never too late to choose yourself.